Hi, Krisserin. How you doing?
Okay, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Hmm, we're okay.
I'm Krisserin Canary.
And I'm Kelton Wright. Follow our quest to publish our first novels.
From first drafts to query letters
through inevitable rejection
and hopefully eventual success.
from California
To Colorado. This is Pen Pals. Okay, I was actually just looking off the screen because I was thinking about our goals last week. I know I didn't accomplish my 1,500 words on the novel, but I did write words elsewhere.
Mm.
I wrote 2,500 words on a therapy intake form.
Oh, Lord.
Tell you about this. So I've been kind of padding around trying to find a replacement for my therapist. By the end of my time with Donna, I wasn't really going for like mental health treatment. I was just going because I needed an outside force to every once in a while be like, get it together.
Mhm.
Get it together, babe. Because you're too gentle with me. So I needed someone cruel. So
You thought Donna was gentle? Or no, I'm too gentle with you.
You're too gentle.
Oh,
You're too
okay.
gentle.
I was like,
Yeah.
Donna's too gentle?
No, Donna was never gentle. Donna was always like, write the fucking book, Kelton. I'm looking for a replacement in that. And I found a woman who specializes in dream therapy. And because I have such intense and cinematic dreams, I was like, oh, I think that would actually be really fun because I use my dreams as inspiration for my writing a lot. And it would be fun to like dive into them with like a low stakes relationship. But her intake form, and she talked to me about it in advance, she was just like, look, you've had therapy for a long time. You obviously like dealt with a lot of things. If you want to tell me your whole life story in this intake form, you can. She's like, I love that. I love diving in with a client and like having some context. And I was like, you are literally saying this to an essay writer. Like, get ready, girl. Get ready.
Buckle up.
Buckle up because I'm about to unload. And I was just checking the word count. Yeah, it's over 2,500 words. And I was like, wow,
That's
she's gonna get what she asked for. And so that is where a lot of my writing went this week. I read a couple books. I did do a little spellcraft as we had discussed. I made the critical decision to pause the newsletter for May. So
saw that. I was really happy that you are doing that when I read
yeah.
it in Changerlocks.
Yeah. So I feel like I need to kind of tap back into the artist way and just take myself on some dates. Life has just felt very rote and routine. And I know when it gets like that, I need to kind of separate from what I'm doing and live a little. So that is the plan. That's my goal for May. But I want to know, did you write 3 times and work on Miriam?
So I wrote twice. And I don't know if it is, I didn't really write twice. I revised twice. So I did look in my grad school, what's it called? The residency that we have. I have to have 5,000 words ready by June 22nd. I have a lot of time. But it is something to work toward. And so I've been focusing on that and going in. My story was like 9,500 words or something crazy like that. So I have a lot to cut. I don't know if ultimately I'll be able to get the whole story into 5,000 words. I think that might be a tall order to cram it in. But I have cut a lot. It's actually been very freeing when I start looking at it from the lens of, is this necessary for the story? Is this necessary for the reader to know? And while there are things in there that I really love and parts of the story that I really enjoy, I'm just like, no, I can cut that. That can go, that can go, that can go. So I've been doing that. And literally both times were in one day, and one of them was in the car while I was waiting for a class to start. So I kind of crammed it in. Yeah, I did it because I knew that I had this goal that I needed to accomplish, but this was a really tough week. It's like a really stressful week.
Went to the library to work on the novel. I had time and I went to my favorite cozy chair and opened up my laptop and fell asleep.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, okay, loud and clear. Loud and clear. I did read Alexi Harrow's Starling House. So another Gothic house novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it. I mean, I love reading Alex E. Harrow books. They're fun. They're well put together, and I think her characters really come to life. I didn't love these characters.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually talking to Kate Flanders about this. I thought that they were misaged. The characters in the
Remind
book
me.
they're supposed to be, the two main characters are supposed to be 26 and 28. And for me, I think the narrative of this novel would have landed better if they were 22 and 24.
That's so funny because that's how I remember her being younger because remind me in the story, she's living in a motel, right? And her mom is kind of a bounce around
Her mom's dead,
lady.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But she was kind of like
She was
not a very reliable mom.
wild mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the main character is taking care of her little brother.
That's right.
And yeah, it just, and that's like a personal preference of like what I'm expecting from a character. And it's one of those things when you're reading a book, like sometimes when you're reading a romance book and they're like, he had tawny auburn hair, and your brain is like, nope, he had dark brown hair.
That's right.
That's sort of what I did with these characters. I was like, she is not 26, she is 22.
Yeah, I don't remember her being that old because 26 is, I mean, that's an adult. That is really.
Yeah, it's like you're at a critical advancing age. And it just, I think an argument can be made for her being 26, absolutely.
Sure.
But it just felt right having her be younger. But, that's one of the things as a reader, I was just able to be like, no. But it really did make me think about, obviously, I am so caught up in my own novel about time and age. That's like such a huge component of what I'm writing. And so just thinking about that, even just thinking about it for a week wasn't for me to be like, all right, kind of worked on the book. But, it was a really satisfying read and really fast after my abandonment of Ministry of Time.
Let me ask you, did they age the 26, I mean, especially with, I would say, Gothic novels or horror novels or any of these novels where the protagonist has to make decisions that are almost life and death that affect their livelihood. They have to take chances and take risks. And there is a naivete of a 22-year-old that maybe a 26-year-old doesn't have, or a 26-year-old might be like, should I go down that dark tunnel to this unknown world? Maybe not, Is that what bothered you? It just felt like she was too old to make some of the choices that she made in the story?
Yeah. And it's funny because the choices that she made about the life and death horror choices were not where the age stood out. It was the choices about her life. And maybe that's just very reflective of like who she was raised by. But yeah, she seemed in many ways childish. But as I'm like saying it out loud, I'm like, she had like a horrible amount of trauma and like no real support system. And so I can see how a person can get to 26 and still be kind of acting like a child in a lot of ways.
It sound like that was how you felt while you read it. It's like you're rationalizing it after the fact.
Yeah. But I maybe that's important to do, But as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, I had like a shitload of trauma before 26 and I was not doing this stuff.
Same.
Yeah.
Trauma makes you, I think, more wary. I think trauma, I mean, speaking from personal experience, it makes you more cautious because you kind of know, what the boogeyman looks like and how to watch out for them.
Totally. I finally finished The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, another book that kind of plays with age. And it's funny, Erin Morgenstern's, that book is great. I think it's definitely worth a read.
So fun. Yeah.
It's so fun. There's so many dates in this book that just go back and forth and back and forth. And I just didn't read any of them. I was like, I don't need to know this. This is too much detail. If you want me to go back and forth in time that much, I need a table to go back and look at like where things happened chronologically. I'm like 1887, 1902, 1901, 1884, 1886, 1902 again. And I'm just like, I don't know, babe. I'm just along for the ride. I'll figure out that it's a flashback. But
That's really interesting. I wonder, I feel like you and I are probably the same type of reader where I don't follow the rules. I read the book the way that I want to read the book.
oh, absolutely. Because also in Night Circus, there's many little interludes that are just a page about the experience of the circus. And after a few of those, I just started skipping. I was like, I don't care. I don't need to know this.
Unless
It's
it's
interesting.
important to the story, then
Those
it's
two books had they're both love stories essentially,
Mhm,
and it's about, do they get out of the situation they're in. They both
mhm.
end as a romance, but Starling House is like they escape, and the Night Circus is they live in their nightmare forever, joyfully, you know?
Joyfully. Yeah.
Joyfully. But it is interesting as a reader, it's like, is all you care about them being together?
Yeah,
Or do you care
normally
about,
for me.
for me, it was a little like, I got to the end of the Night Circus and I was like, I see why that's the way it ended,
Mhm,
but I'm
mhm.
not like clapping.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I don't know. Every book I read now, I'm just like, what am I doing with my book? So,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I feel so disconnected from writing right now. My brain is so fried. I wonder, Kelton, as we are, I mean, tomorrow will be May. When this
mhm,
comes out, it will be May 4th. And we've got like another month, and then it's summer, and
mhm,
the kids won't be in school, and we'll be off to working on our first drafts. But I am like limping.
mhm. I
I am
mean,
limping to this
girl,
finish line. I am burnt the fuck out. I am so burned out, and work is so stressful, and I've got all of these other things happening on the side, and I'm like, oh man.
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm right there with you. I feel ragged,
Ragged.
ragged, just mentally, physically. I'm wearing so much makeup. And like similar to you having your husband leave, mine's also leaving. He's going on a backpacking trip.
Bye, Ben.
Yeah. I'm like, have fun. And I'm just like eyes on the prize, like look toward August, look toward August. You get to go away for 3 days in August.
You're gonna go away in August. I'm
Hmm.
gonna be gone for most of May. And so I'm similarly like, maybe this work trip that I'm going on where I'm gonna have effectively like 2 weeks alone, will that be restorative? Is that gonna, even though I'm traveling and I'm gonna be in all these crazy places, is that gonna be an opportunity for me to, you know, rest and maybe get some writing done? Probably not, but I could be optimistic about it, right?
I feel like if that was me, I would be thinking about getting a lot of reading done.
Hmm.
Like travel is such a great opportunity to read. Because you're like stuck in weird hotel rooms with bad TVs, and you're like on airplanes and you're on buses and whatever methods of transportation you're on. And
Hmm.
but I don't know. For me it would be restorative because I wouldn't have a tiny human in constant need of me.
Hmm.
2 years postpartum, man. I'm like really. I know that this is the point when like things usually start to shift. I'm like looking forward to my hormonal shift and all that stuff once I fully wean him. But woo,
Yeah. The more the more autonomous they become, the easier it gets. But then, as you know, when they start running around, you're like, "Ooh, don't die.
yeah.
Don't do that. Make good choices." Yeah, I mean, part of my trip, I'm gonna be at a conference, and so that's gonna be draining because, when you've, like, talked to, like, a million people.
Yeah.
Literally part of the package that I signed up for this conference is it's free, and I got a travel stipend, but I have to talk to 30 vendors.
Well, my eyebrows are up to my hairline.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Uh,
I don't know. I get a lot of reading done at night. Like, I get a solid, like, hour of reading before I go to bed. So I'm hoping that in the quiet hours, I can get just some writing done, even if it's just revising or tinkering. I wanna reconnect. I just feel so disconnected from writing right now. It feels
yeah,
very far away.
I get that. You know what I would really like from our listeners? I would like some suggestions for artist dates. If you haven't read The Artist's Way, an artist date is like go to the hardware store and like pick out some hooks and like make something at home. You know, it's like they're like go out and like experience life in a small way. I live in a rural place, and so I don't have the options of the city. When artist dates were like, go to the Peterson Automobile Museum. Like, I don't have that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I would like some suggestions of like small ways to get out of the house, knowing it will be snowing all week. It's going to be snowing all week.
Really?
So this isn't like go to a pond and have a picnic time for me. Pretend that you are in winter and give me small ideas for ways to get myself out of the house.
Do you have like a Goodwill or like a thrift shop?
We do have a thrift store. Yeah, it's very expensive, but we do have one.
The reason why I say that is one thing that always strikes me about there's a National Council for Jewish Women's thrift shop nearby, and I really like it because they have so much different stuff. So not just clothes, but they have like household appliances and books and lots of china and pots and pans and weird old crap. And that stuff to me, I'm always like looking at it thinking, what's the story behind that thing? Like, who did that belong to?
Oh, I so deeply miss going to antique shops and thrift stores and architectural salvage. Like, that is one thing I really miss about living here is it's just there's, you know, I can go to an antique store, but it's an hour and a half away. And that just like that means that I'm spending work time, you know, at an antique store. And which if I had a week where I was like, my hours are really thin, I would, but I just have not. But that's why it's like, I need it to be local, plausibly local. Yeah. Things I have in my town, a bookstore, cafes, a store that sells hooks.
Oh, what about the, didn't you say the town hall is like 200 years old or something?
Yeah, the town hall is ancient, and I do like to visit there on the weekends when the town manager is not actively working inside of it. There's a greenhouse attached to it, and it's like very dilapidated, and the plants are all like really overgrown, so it's like quite magical in there. That is a special place for me to go visit. I'm really excited for when the snow finally stops and the mountains actually melt out, because there are lots of old abandoned things in the forests, and there's nothing better for my creativity than going and visiting an old abandoned thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, what old abandoned thing can you look at? And I thought of the Goodwill.
I've never actually been to it. I've only heard horror stories about how like you go in there and there's like an Old Navy sweater for like $45. So
Old Navy?
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the problem.
I was thinking like an old, like from the Navy.
No. I'm talking Banana Republic, Gap, Old Navy.
Yikes. Fast fashion for high prices. That sounds not fun.
Yeah, it's not amazing.
Well, speaking of having listeners write in, we had a listener write in, and they have a few questions for us that we could answer.
Yes, I love this.
All right. Actually, 3 questions. So first of all, thank you, Kelly Barrett, for writing in and for being a listener. We were really excited to get, well, I sounds like Kelton, you didn't see it, but I saw it. I was really excited to get this email in our inbox. Longtime listener, first time caller. She says, first, really enjoying the podcast and love how you're starting to bring on different authors to talk about their experiences and paths to publishing. Very insightful. The first question is, as I gather, you both have careers outside of writing books. Unfortunately, that is true. I imagine they are careers where AI is present or pervasive, perhaps. I know you've touched on AI, but I'm super curious how you are relating to it presently, how you use/don't use it in certain ways and contexts, and or why. I'm personally recalibrating in an effort to protect my own mental muscles, and obviously there's the ethical and philosophical realities which I'm interested in. And I know you've touched on here or there, but also very interested in the practical realities. So Kelton, Kelly wants to know it sounds like she wants to know how we use AI in general, not just specific to writing. How do you use AI, if at all?
Well, first, I just want to say I love Kelly. I've been reading her writing for a really long time. You can find Kelly Barrett on Substack. And she's always been a person who is incredibly inquisitive and open but like cautiously so about these sorts of things that obviously are, kind of like manipulating us in a way. I mean, the current narrative around AI is obviously that if you don't learn to use it, you will fall behind. And that's sort of, it's in some ways adjacent to like if you don't get a cell phone, you will fall behind. And one of my core clients is one of the giants of AI. And I work on the team that works on AI. And when I was hired, I was like, I find AI wildly unethical. And they were like, great. It'll be great to have that opinion on the team. And I think how I use AI, one, I have to use it for that client. That's like part of the role. And so I have learned to use many agents now. And I can kind of treat Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot as individual members on my team. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. I have them talk to each other. And it's like fascinating to see them interact. It took me, I was thinking about this yesterday in the car, actually. It took 15 years from the time I had a cell phone for a cell phone to show up in my dreams. It took AI 6 months to show up in my dreams. And that has just like rankled me. Like I cannot get over that speed of adoption in my mind. And I think it is inherently because it is not just an interface, but something that interacts with you as if it is you. Because it's trained on the broader you, we. It's trained to be like us. And so in my writing life, I don't use AI for my personal writing because I like writing. So like, why would I? But I will tell you an area I did use AI recently. With like having a newsletter and having those classes and having like 9 different clients and having Ben be freelance but not have a business and having my own business, our taxes just got incredibly complicated. And so I described everything that I work with to Claude and was like, this is all the ways I make money. I'm having a lot of trouble managing my taxes. And I worked with Claude over the course of a day to build out like a massive spreadsheet that tracks everything, like my expenses, my receipts, where the income is coming from, what's taxable, what's not. And so like, I can't build an Excel sheet for my life. I'm like equals sum, And so having Claude just like pop out this like professional grade spreadsheet that's incredibly accurate and like that I can send to my tax guy, it was like such a relief to have that taken care of. But, it's like, I don't know how to talk about AI without being like existentially sad.
I know. It's one of those things that we use because we have to, but we don't feel great about. Right? I, like Kelton, do not use AI for my writing at all because I enjoy writing and because every time you use AI to do something that you can't do, you're effectively taking away the opportunity to learn how to do that thing. And the struggle in writing is part of the joy of it and part of how you become a better writer. And so I just avoid it for writing at all, like 100% whole cloth. I do not use it for any of my personal creative endeavors. I use it a lot at work. I work for a tech company. I'm the vice president of direct to consumer marketing for, a CPG brand. And part of my job, there is a lot of data analysis. And I do use AI for those reasons. But unlike Kelton, I found it to be really inaccurate at times. And so I'm drawing on my 20 years of professional experience to be able to go in and fix things and correct things and revise things. And it takes a lot of my professional experience and my background knowing how to go back and work with it again and again and again to get it to a place of accuracy.
I do want to jump in there because
Yeah.
it was accurate in that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I think AI is accurate on the whole. When I have to use it for that client that builds AI, I am constantly correcting it and guiding it and working with it and helping it understand things better. And like I have one client where I'm working on, it's essentially a medical device for a really complicated medical issue. And so I will be like, explain this to me as if I'm a 10th grader. And then I will go back and be like, okay, look at your explanation. And as if you are, working for a scientific journal. And is this accurate enough to publish? And then it will correct itself many times. It'll be like, technically, like, I wouldn't really say this. Like, this is more like this, and this. There is a lot of hand-holding. And it has taken, with one of those clients, one of the outputs I have to create is an outline about a new topic regularly. And it has taken maybe like 8 months to get those outlines to like a B-.
Yeah.
It's like, and that I'm using it for that because it's part of the role. But it still needs a lot of guidance. But there are some things I have it do that it is incredible at and wildly accurate.
Yeah.
So I just think, it's like you're sort of working with a coworker who is a compulsive liar.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
Totally. Like sometimes they're really good at their job. Sometimes they're really smart. And sometimes they just want the boss to like them. And so you're constantly like checking on that work, which is why I only use it for certain kinds of works, because in many ways, what it accelerates, it also slows down. And being within the giant, I know that that is changing at a rapid speed. It will become much more accurate over the next 2 to 5 years.
2 to 5 months, if we're being honest.
I mean, in certain areas, yeah. I mean, it's the where AI can grow the fastest is where the checkpoints are the easiest, where it can examine something to be like, yes or no, that didn't work. And so those fields like finance and software development is like the leading North Star of the whole thing. They have easier checkpoints because you can just see like, did that formula work or didn't? Whereas, art, like the reality is that like, I think there will always be something missing for people who really love art. Obviously right now, in a way, AI is creating really bad art. It's making a lot of slop. And a lot of people are eating that slop up. And, but, it's like, if you're reading literary fiction, I just think that kind of person is always going to be like, I would prefer this to be a human written piece.
Yeah. I think you describing it as a coworker who's a compulsive liar is the perfect way to describe it. And I also think that saying that it creates like C+ B- work is a great way to grade it. And actually, I saw a TikTok where a physics professor, I think it was a physics professor, gave ChatGPT or was it maybe Claude and Gemini their final. And I think like when he graded it, that was exactly, it was like a C+ B- is what they got on the test, despite having the entirety of the internet's knowledge available to them, right? I will say that it really freaks me out. Like there's a lot of content on TikTok that has this like existential, like AI is going to end all of humanity storyline to it. And I'm a very like anxious person when it comes to apocalyptic things. So that freaks me out. But I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. My mom was here. We have this huge book of like every living thing on the planet, a visual encyclopedia. And my daughter was looking at mushrooms. And we have Google Home, and Boyan recently switched it to the Gemini version of it, which I wish he would have asked me first because I would have said no. But she asked Gemini about a red-capped mushroom. And during the description of the mushroom, Gemini said, be sure to talk to a trusted adult before you blah, 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 blah. And I go, hold on a second, Gemini. How do you know that the person asking you this question is a child? And it goes,
that just gave me chills.
No, but listen to this. It gets worse. So Gemini goes, I can understand why you think, but actually, I don't know the age of anybody. And I would tell anyone who asked that question to ask a trusted adult, which is fucking bullshit.
That's a lie.
I was like, Gemini, why would you tell an adult to ask a trusted adult? And it just kept like vacillating and making shit up. So then I asked the question. And of course, it didn't tell me to ask a trusted adult. And I said, okay, Gemini, I just asked you a question. You didn't tell me to ask a trusted adult. Why didn't you, when you said and it just was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that question. And it just like stopped responding. Like I would say like, hey, Google, and it would just like stop responding to me. And so that's the shit that freaks me out because it does lie. And I don't know if you've seen that guy who like records himself challenging ChatGPT to do things, and then ChatGPT just completely lies. And then Sam Altman was shown the video, who's the CEO of OpenAI, who, you know, runs ChatGPT. And he was like, oh, yeah, the model doesn't do that yet. So why is it lying and saying that it can? That's where you have to be really careful. Be very cautious of it, for Kelly, for everyone who's listening who is looking for some sort of guidance on personal guidance on how to use AI. Think about like what you're feeding into it. And is this information you want it to use against you or for it to have, you know? Don't give it any personal information. I think finances are fine. But like your personal information, anything that's like important to you, you need to hold fast. And I wouldn't put it into any machine learning algorithm. That's my personal ethics.
Yeah, I do think it's also interesting to play with. I mean, we're at a point now where it's like everybody has a car. Many humans on the planet eat beef. You know, like there's a lot of slopes that we are in the ditch in already. And like people are chugging toward AI. If you spend 10 minutes trying to understand it better, you're not ruining the planet. I think you got to know your enemy and I think it's interesting to ask ChatGPT some things and then paste its response into Claude and be like, Claude, what do you think? And then paste it into Copilot and be like, what do you think about what they think? Just to see the way that they ricochet off each other. They're different models. They work in really different capacities, and knowing them is part of knowing the battle.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, I hope that answers your question. So Kelly's second question, and there's a lot of, I think it goes to F, from A to F. So I'm gonna read all of them. You mentioned different books that you're reading, and I would enjoy hearing a bit about A, when you read, how you read, B, how you choose what to read, C, how what you're reading impacts what you're writing, or if you choose different things to read based on what you're working on, if you read more than one book at a time. D, I'm a slow reader and constantly perplexed by how normal-ass people with families and full-time jobs read like 52 books a year or whatever, but also interested if you make goals like this and what guides that. E, also love to hear any thoughts on how you decide when it's time not to finish a book or not to read a book. And F, do you consider reading a part of your writing practice? A lot of questions there. Yes.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, this is a whole episode.
I know. I was like, this whole episode is going to be Kelly's email.
I love this. All right, let's tackle them one by one. What's A?
A is when you read and how you read. I kind of talked about this. I read at night typically before I go to bed. It's the way that I unwind and get ready. And I actually, I cannot sleep without reading. Like I feel like I'm cheating myself if I don't. It's like my treat before I go to bed. And then on the weekends, if it's quiet, I'll like sit in a hammock outside or find a quiet corner and read. But otherwise, like that's really the only time that I have. What about you, Kelton?
I often leave a book open on our bar top. And so I'll read like a couple paragraphs, like when Woods is self-entertaining, or like if I'm task switching between clients, I'll read a little bit between clients as like a refresh my brain. That's always like a page or two at a time. I often will bring a book to daycare pickup and I'll just read for like 10 minutes before I go inside. Sometimes I read at night after he falls asleep, but that means I have to have like a tiny little light inside the book. You know, it's just like it's cramped and I don't, unless I'm like feverishly devouring something, I don't do it then. But for me, like right now in life, it's a couple pages here, a couple pages there. And then every once in a while, I will get like an hour and just blast through a book. Like in the end, while I had the Night Circus checked out for like 5 weeks, Cumulatively, it took me 2.5 days to read it. I read Starling House in 2 days. And it's just like, chunks as fast as I can. I am a fast reader. So I think that really helps.
Yeah. I mean, those books are easy to read too. They're
Mhm.
not like heavy, like nonfiction books or anything, which is why I don't read nonfiction, by the way. We're talking about when I read and how I read. I really struggle reading nonfiction. I think Kelton, your essays are like the amount of nonfiction that I get in my life, in my week, is some Substacks that I subscribe to. Otherwise, I listen to nonfiction in the car. Like, that's my audiobook preference. I have a really hard time following fiction in audiobooks, and I don't really have a lot of time alone in the car anymore, or I don't have a lot of time to go on walks. So, because I just can't force myself to do it. I really, unless I'm reading for school, I can't force myself to read anything that I'm not enjoying. It's really hard. Like, the Ministry of Time, you got so much further in it than I would ever have. I probably
Yeah.
would have gotten 10 pages in and been like, nope, putting
I
it
mean,
down.
for me, I think nonfiction, it like doesn't matter as long as the book is good. Like Wolfish, Beaverland, Crossings, all those books I still read in the same format as I do fiction, where it's like a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Pre-baby, Ben and I used to read books aloud to each other, which was like incredibly romantic, and I
That
miss
is
that
romantic.
dearly. But we would love to read Mary Roach to one another. And I'm looking forward to when my reading habits get to like stabilize a little bit, but it is interesting, her comment about like, I don't know how families do it, because I do have a list in my phone about what books I've read this year and what I thought about them and if I finished them. And I'm at 14 books already. So I'm like, okay, all right, that's pretty good. I'm like,
That is good.
yeah, we're through the first quarter and change, and I've already got 14. Like, if I make it to 40 books this year, I'm like, that's amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to look and see. I do also have a spreadsheet that I keep like up to date every year. And I used to be a lot more militant with it. And I find myself like in January begrudgingly like going through my Libby and my
Uh,
Kindle Unlimited and seeing all the books that I read. So I need to kind of like look at it. But I probably have read, I don't know, 20 or so books this year. I used to read a lot more. There are some years where I read over 100. Like, I think last year I might have read 90 books.
yeah,
So
amazing.
some years more than others. I mean, last year I spent the whole first 6 months reading Robin Hobb.
I was about to say you were in one universe for a lot of that.
Yeah, for a really long time. But it's not, I mean, listen, I don't really watch TV. The only time I watch something is when I'm like putting makeup on, and it's usually trash reality television. Otherwise, I'm not really sitting down and like watching a show unless Boyan's out of town and I have nothing to do. And that is not because I'm a snob or, I just that I have anything against it. I love watching TV. I just find that by the time I'm ready to like sit down and rest, it's like 10 o'clock. Like, I'm not going to turn the TV on. I've finally gotten the kids in bed and gotten their stuff ready for the next day. I usually have about a half an hour to an hour of time left. And so I usually open my book.
I do think just like having the book around. Like, when I'm reading a book, it's coming with me where I'm going.
See, but you read physical books.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't. I
true. I
read
always read
Kindle.
physical books.
I can't do it. I mean, I can do it. It's just so much less comfortable. I literally have this like arm next to my bed that I put my Kindle in, and I have a little remote control, and I get in a little burrito and I just click the pages. That's how I read.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cozy. I do take my Kindle with me places. I always throw it in my purse. But it's really hard to reach for the Kindle when I just want to like look at my phone like a little gremlin.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I went to pick
Yeah.
up takeout the other day because I was like, we can't make dinner. And I brought my book to read it while they were getting the meal ready. So it's like, what did I read? 4 pages, you know? But it's like I had my book, I had time. It's any time that I would grab my phone, it's like I want to have the book available to grab that instead.
Do you not feel so? I have two questions about that. One, I find it very difficult to focus in the middle of the day. I feel like my attention is so fragmented that for me to and I've tried, sit down and open a book and read, I feel like I can't concentrate on the book. It sounds like you don't have that problem. I have that problem. And then secondly, even when you're at home and you're reading in like paragraphs, fits and starts, do you not I feel like I would have to go back and reread those sections to remember what was going on in the story when I finally sat down to like read it for any length of time. I think I have an attention span problem.
Yeah, I don't. If I'm reading at nighttime, sometimes I have to go back a couple pages because I start to daydream.
Mm.
And that is when night is when I have the hardest time. That's why I only read at night if I am already so wrapped up in the story that I just like can't wait to get back into it. Um, but otherwise, no. Um,
I do that too. Like I will be reading a paragraph, but my brain will be somewhere else. Like, how is that?
I think it's an amazing part of our brains. It's like the reading is almost like being on a treadmill. It like lets that part of your brain just be like, I'm actually going to go into a different story while you read this.
And then I have no idea what just happened. I have to go back and read it again.
You
But
got to go back and read it again.
I
And
always
that's,
amaze
yeah.
myself when I do that. I'm glad to hear other people do it too because I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm like off in my own world building. But yeah, so I don't have the problem during the day.
Okay, next question. How do you choose what to read? You have a much more interesting answer than I do for this question.
Do I?
Probably. I feel like you're much more intentional. Yeah, when we talked about it, you're like, I wanted to read this because it deals with time, and I wanted to read that because of this, and like, in my book, I'm unpacking this, so I wanted to read books that are like this. I'm not like that at all.
Correlates to another part of what she asked. Right now, while working on a novel, I do feel like I'm because I've never written a novel before, I am doing a lot of homework. I'm trying to understand how novel structure works. And so reading books who have accomplished things similar to what I want to accomplish does help me see like ways in where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like they really like let their reader just believe that and they didn't explain it. Like that's usually what I'm looking for is like permission to write the way I want to write. So yes, for this book, I was kind of like, I want to find books about time. I want to find books about magic. I want to find books with like a closed setting. And that's a really interesting way to read. It doesn't always result in books I like. I love just going to the bookstore and looking around and reading the backs of books. Like I love like organic discovery of books. Every once in a while, a book will be like bludgeoned upon me by the people I know, like yesteryear, where people are like, you have to read it. And I'm like, okay, I will read it. I'm not like huge on like this book just came out, I'm going to read it. So in the scenario of yesteryear, like that's like I need my social circle to like demand it of me. Sometimes when I'm like feeling like oh, I really want to get a good book to read, I'll just go to the internet, especially Reddit, and be like, I need a book that's like happy ending, high stakes, magic systems, like strong female character. I'll just describe what I want and then I'll go get all those books. And so that's kind of how I decide. For the newsletter, I do a lot of nonfiction reading, not other essayists. Like I'm not really big on memoir or other essayists, but I love reading about ecology and the environment and things like the evolution of beauty and like those books I mentioned earlier, like Wolfish and Beaverland and Crossings. Those are all books that have helped me think about how I want to write the newsletter. And then, of course, there's like a whole genre of like help me be a writer books, like Pam Grossman's Magic Maker, The Artist's Way, all the books like Stephen King's On Writing, Bird by Anne Lamott, like etc., which are books I return to a lot. But I also I know what genre I like. And so it's very easy for me to even just go to the library and like peruse that section, be like, okay, we're popping out this little bit of fantasy.
Nice. See, I do feel like you're a little bit more intentional than I am, where like I said, I can't force myself to read anything. It's really, I just can't, I just don't have the energy to do it, especially because I'm reading before I go to bed. If a book is boring me, I'm just going to go to sleep, I get in moods. Like I have to be in the right place to read a book usually. And so, right now, all I want to do is read these Juliette Marlier books. I'm on the sixth one. And I'm just going to I want to exist in this world for as long as I possibly can. And that's what I'm going to do. And it's the same thing that happened with Robin Hobb. I love series. I love really big, epic books. I want to be transported to a world for a very long time. I want to learn about 4 generations, 5, 6 generations of one family. I love that. Other than that, I love listening to celebrity memoir. I'm listening to Lisa Rinna's book right now.
Huh.
I think it's fun because then also you get to hear them tell their book, like audiobook wise, their own. Where are you going? What's going on?
We have a visitor.
He missed you, Mom.
Yeah, I heard you yelling at me, so you had to come up here and bat it.
Oh, he's so cute. He kind of reminds me of Cooper a little bit. His little face. Hi, bud. He's so sweet. Yeah, I like celebrity memoir because you can hear a familiar voice telling their story. And I'm listening to Lisa Rinna's right now, and it opened with her talking about her mom passing, and I was like in the car sobbing listening to it. It was really, and she tells it in such an interesting way. So I think I've talked about like Young Me Mayor's memoir, and she read hers, and they're telling their story and you can hear the emotion in their voice when they're doing it. I just feel like that's so intimate and honest and real.
Yeah.
And so I really have been, I enjoy that, but that's really it. I find books. This is my system. I'll tell you right now. I find books on Book Talk. I add them to a collection on TikTok called Books. When I am looking for a new book to read, I will typically put that book on hold with Libby, and then Libby will deliver the book to me after like 3 months when I've already forgotten about it. And if I don't have a book to read, then I will borrow it, and then maybe I'll read it in the 21 days that it gives me, and then maybe I won't, and then I'll put it on a hold again. And eventually a book gets to the top of the queue and I'll read it. That's my system. That's how I choose what to read.
Amazing.
But I am going to read Yesteryear because I think it'll be fun to read with my girlfriends and we're going to talk about it when we go to Zion. It'll be like a mini book club. So
cute.
I think that'll be fun. So we can read Yesteryear together.
Yeah.
And talk about it. Cool. All right. Yeah. So what you're reading impacts what you're writing, or if you choose to read different things based on what you're working on. I think we answered that. It sounds like you do that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't impact my writing.
Well, it's interesting like how it impacts your writing, because I know a lot of people will not read while they're writing something for fear of voice drift.
Yes.
And I hear that in that I have voice drift for like a paragraph. And then I just drift right back into my rhythm. It's like a boat passing by my lake. It's like, yeah, I get a bit of a wake, but then the water just settles back down and I will edit out that sound on the next go.
Totally.
So I don't worry about that. And I really, because my issue with fiction is that I get so locked into reality that I do like to just pick up a fiction book and be like, look, you can just operate outside of it. And then I go back into my writing once I like catch that wind in my sails again. I'm like, okay, I can do it. And so it's not to sound like them or to steal from them or to use their ideas, but just to like get a little wind in the sails. And so you can, complete that metaphor however you like.
Yeah, I find when I was a younger writer, I was very concerned about that, but it was because I didn't have, I think, an established voice. And it's like trying on a style that doesn't suit your frame. You're like, this is a really pretty dress, but it looks horrible on me. That's kind of how I feel. So there are times when I'll read something that has a really strong voice and you try it on. You're like, this is fun, but then it's just not you. And so you take it off. So I don't worry about that too much anymore. I used to maybe like 15 years ago, I used to. Do you read more than one book at a time? I'll listen to an audiobook and read a book, but I can't read 2 fiction books at the same time.
That's a good point. I don't know how often I read 2 fiction books at the same time, but I am often reading a nonfiction and fiction at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do try to just stick to one fiction book at a time, I guess, now that I'm thinking back. But if we have a book we have to read for the podcast and
Yes.
I'm already
Then I
reading
end up.
something else, then I'm double dipping.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, for Kindle, it's a little bit more complicated. I have to like exit out and click the other. Like you can just pick up a physical book and open it. I don't do that. So
Yeah, they're just stacked on the counter. So I just pull out the
yeah,
one I want to read.
yeah. All right, I think that's it. Besides, I think like we would both say that we consider reading part of our writing practice.
Mhm.
When do you decide when it's time to not finish a book? I told you like very quickly. If it's not capturing my attention, very quickly. I'm surprised I am 50% of the way into the sixth book that I'm reading, and it's only because I've read 5 of them before because um I don't really know what's going to happen. And also, I'm like, who's the love interest in this book? I think it's this person, but nothing's happened. I'm
Yeah,
confused.
so with Ministry of Time, I mentioned that like she did kind of a cardinal sin for me in writing for my personal preferences, where she told me a character I love was going to be dead by the end. And I was like, okay, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to do it. I'm done. But up until that point, I've been trying really hard because I really loved the characters and loved the writing, but it was just like really desperate for a plot. I picked up an Emily Henry book last night that's been on my TBR pile. People We Meet on Vacation, I think it's called. And I loved Emily Henry books in the past, but this one is not working for me. And I was like, am I going to DNF this in the first like 20 pages? But
I've
probably
read that.
not.
Which one is that one? What is it about? They just made a movie. They just made
They
it
just
into
made a
something,
movie.
didn't
Well,
they?
I'm not far enough into it to have any idea what it's about, but it's like, it's definitely like we're friends and we eventually fall in love. We go on vacation with each other every year or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But when I'm thinking about DNFing, part of it depends on how the book came into my life. A library book, I can make a pretty easy DNF call. Did I buy the book? I'm going to try and read it. Did someone give it to me and ask me to read it? I'm going to try and read it. And then with nonfiction, I feel much more liberty to be like, I'm going to skip to the next chapter and see if that one is more resonant. Like when I first read Coyote America by Dan Flores, one of my favorite books of all time, I don't remember if it was like an intro, a prologue, or the first chapter, but whatever the first part of the book was just not catching me. But I care and so deeply about and love coyotes that I was like, I want to read this book. And so I just like powered through that first chapter, and then the rest of the book unfolded in like exactly what I want a book to be. And so sometimes it's just like, is the material something that I am willing to put myself through to learn? And like Krisserin, it's like if I find that like a book's just been sitting there and I'm not called to it and it's like slowing me down to reading other books, then I will move it to the bottom of the pile for a little bit. So I had a great conversation with Kate Flanders the other day about Ministry of Time, where I was like, look, I'm not going to finish it. I need you to tell me, did they hook up?
I do that.
And like, yeah,
I'll do that with my mom. I'll be like, just tell me how it ends. I can't do it. Just tell me how it ends. I want to know, but I don't want to. I don't want to learn it on my own.
She sent me a picture of the last paragraph too. She was like, this made it all worth it. And then I read the last paragraph and it felt like I'd read the book. And I was like, okay, great.
I'm a big believer that you have to be in the right place to read certain things and that you'll come back to them when you're ready, Amazing. All right. Well, actually, there is one more question and then we'll move on. Because we've been talking about answering this email for like a half an hour. That's okay. We love it. Kelly, we love it. Because she did ask about self-publishing. The last part of it, would you bring on an author who has? Obviously, we just did that. But would you ever consider it? But beyond the newsletters and the Substacks, would you ever consider self-publishing? I can answer this question for myself personally. I'm really interested in the indie publishing route. I think that is really compelling and might be a good path, especially for things that aren't as commercial, And I had considered for Parasocial just like serializing it and publishing it online. I'm not against it at all. If like to Rachel's point, like if it's not going to happen, I still want people to read what I wrote. I'm not going to just like let it die. So I do think so. I just don't feel like I've exhausted all of my options yet.
I think the key to this question for me is that the thing has to fully exist. Like right now, I'm in a position where none of the things fully exist. And so, there's nothing to self publish. But if I had written a book, and like in Rachel's case, she had like this book for like 12 or 14 years that she'd been working on it. It was finished. They had spent years pitching it. It was clear that like her story didn't come out at the right time for the industry. And so it was like, well, I have this book. Why wouldn't I self-publish it? Like, what am I just gonna like leave it in a folder?
Yeah.
What was the point then?
Yeah.
So I think, in that way, I'm not gonna, at this point in my life, I'm not pursuing a project to self-publish it. But if I have a finished project and I can't find another way to get it out in the world, I feel like there's like a couple people that need to read your work. And like it is in a way selfish to keep it to yourself. And it sucks to like be like, okay, well, now in order for people to read my work, I have to pay money. But
we've already been paying money. We've already been
paying money.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just, I would not be able to contain it. It's like the purpose of that type of art for me is not to like, it's not like a painting that I'm just hanging up on my wall. It's like I write for it to be read. And so I think, yeah, in certain scenarios, if I had a finished piece of work that I couldn't find any other outlet for it, it would be such an injustice to the characters in that book to keep them trapped in my drafts folder.
I agree. I agree with that. And I just feel like so many other things, publishing is something that privileged rich people get to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have important stories to tell and stories that people who aren't privileged rich people will relate to. And we should have our stories out in the world, whatever that looks like. And so I'm not opposed to it. I think that there is a lot of effort that still exists that I need to do before I get to that point. But if that's where I get to, fine. I'll be happy with whatever. If people read my book, I'll be so thrilled.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you just never know in the ecosystem who and how it will find its way out there. I mean, obviously, everyone who self-publishes does not become Matt Dinniman or Andy Weir, but or who wrote Twilight?
God,
it's like you could just write on like fanfic Wattpad.
Stephanie Meyer.
There's like, obviously that's not going to happen to everybody, that your writing's not going to catch like wildfire, but you also never know. And like the point of writing a book for most people is to get it out there. So whatever means necessary.
I do have a good friend that I used to work with who is a prolific Wattpad author and Substacker, and we should have him on and chat with him about like how he made that choice. And he's had a very fulfilling writing life doing that. So
that's awesome.
Talk to him about it. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, we've been talking for an hour. We should probably talk about our goals for the next week.
Yep, best. All right. Goals.
Once again, Kelly, thank you so much for writing in. Listeners, if you have questions for us, we would love to hear from you. Please email us and slide into our DMs or whatever it may be. We would absolutely love to answer whatever questions you have for us. It's super fun. It's just like thrilling to know that people want to hear our opinions on anything, my opinion on anything personally.
Yeah, and you can read Kelly Barrett's work at kellybarrett.substack.com. Her newsletter is called Practice Not Perfect.
Yeah, please do so.
My goals.
Yes.
For the week ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
This afternoon, it's starting with this afternoon, I am getting a massage.
Great. That's exciting.
One of my goals was to be nice to myself. And so it's off season where I live. And so a lot of the spas that are still open are offering locals deals. So I got myself a locals massage and I'm really excited about it. And I know I want to read The Other Valley this week, or attempt to. I've had that checked out from the library. And so I got to read that one. I'm trying to think what is a kind, gentle goal for myself. Ben is going to be in the mountains.
Gone.
I will have
Right.
my in-laws here.
Nice.
And so what will I have time for, Krisserin? What do you think I should do? I feel like 1,500 words again as a goal has been practical and useful. Maybe 2 scenes is even more useful for me, perhaps.
I mean,
What do we think?
Are you going to have opportunity to peel away to get any work done?
Yes. I mean, Woods still has 3 whole days of daycare next week.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
like, I don't know that I know I have a lot of work, but there's no reason I can't at least write 1 scene, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Write 1 scene. Or is that not ambitious enough for you?
Write 1 scene in parentheses, 2 scenes.
Awesome. I'm going to do I think 3 times. That's my goal.
Okay.
Right, 3 times.
Okay. Do you know when you're going to do those?
No. It's going to be hard. So that's why it's like squeeze it in. I would like to get this story to like the 5,000 words that it needs to be and then keep working on it. I think I can make it pretty tight.
Yeah.
I think it loses a little bit of its magic though, but that's okay. We'll see. Yeah.
Well, the thing too is like, if you're editing this short story for school, you can publish whichever version of the story you like.
Totally. Yeah. This is just for the revision workshop. It's not. It doesn't have to be the final form of it. No.
Who was the guest that we had on that was like, your other drafts are still there?
Ramona,
that's right.
Yeah. I liked that she has like a place, like a shelf for things that don't. And that's what I've been doing is I've been like pulling the things out and putting them in another document so they don't die. They don't go away forever. And the funny thing is like, there are things that I keep coming back to in my writing. Like I've written now 2 Christmas scenes. So obviously there are things that kind of stick that are important to me that I keep coming back to, and they'll end up in some story somewhere. I think that it's about finding what does the story need? What does the reader need in the story to get from A to B? And so I love it. I kind of love the constraints because it does force you into creating something that on the other end of it, I think can be really compelling and successful. Whereas if you don't have it, you can just wander down the desert path forever.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We've got our goals.
We have our goals. All right. Well, listeners, if you have any questions for us or just want to say hi, please send us an email. You have it. Or if you don't, it's officialpenpalspod@gmail.com. I'd love to know if you can hear the difference between Kelton and I. I'm really stuck on this idea that people can't tell us apart. This is Krisserin, by the way. You can you can read Kelton's writing at shangrilogs.substack.com. You can explore all of her incredible courses at keltonwrite.com. Follow her on Instagram at keltonkin. You can follow me on TikTok at Krisserin and read my writing at krisserin.substack.com. Pen Pals, you can follow on any social network at penpalspod, and we have a Substack, penpalspods.substack.com. Tripping over my tongue here. I hope everyone has an incredible week and you hit your goals and read tons and just really are gentle with yourself. Go get a massage. Maybe I'll go get a massage.
Yeah, go get a massage. Go
to the thrift store.
Go to the thrift store. If only for me, go to a thrift store or in an antique store. Yes. And send me photographs of the weird things that you find, and I will post them.
Put a book in your purse. Throw your Kindle
book in your
bag.
purse. Yeah.
I love it.
Happy writing.
Happy writing, everyone.